Do you ever wonder why dates have such significance? Why do we celebrate some, but not others? Well, today is one of those days, so let's find out what happened on this day, May the 18th, and, along the way, find out what you didn't know about the past. Let's go. On this day in 1821, the first major victory of the Rio de la Plata Revolution was won in the Battle of Las Piedras. What's that? Well, if you can tell me where Uruguay is, I'll tell you all about it. Here you go. Good. Now right there you see that sliver of land between Argentina and Brazil. That's Uruguay, or more specifically, a region within Argentina known as the Banda Oriental, which was contested by both Brazil and Argentina at the time, leading to the Rio de la Plata Revolution. The revolution began with the Battle of Las Piedras, fought on May 18, 1821, when the forces of the United Provinces of the Rio de la Plata defeated the Portuguese and Brazilian troops. As a result, the province of Banda Oriental declared its independence from Portugal and Brazil and became the Oriental Republic of Uruguay, though it still had to fight a war with Brazil to fully secure its independence, which lasted until 1828. So that's pretty much it for events that happened on this day. On May 18, 1821. But here's another date associated with this day, 1860. Do you know why? Because on this day in 1860, the world witnessed a remarkable event, the eruption of Mount St. Helens, which caused massive devastation in the surrounding areas. But wait, hold on. That can't be right. If we go back in history to 1860, we'll see that there was no eruption of Mount St. Helens. In fact, the mountain had been quiet for many years. This apparent discrepancy might leave you scratching your head wondering what on earth could be causing this confusion. Did the event really happen on this day? Is there some sort of mistake? Well, it turns out that you're dealing with a case of mistaken identity. Yes, Mount St. Helens did erupt in the year 1860, but not in the month of May. Instead, the eruption occurred in the month of September. This mix-up has led to a lot of confusion over the years, with people mistakenly believing that the eruption happened in May. But the truth is that the actual date was September 1860. That means that while there was no eruption of Mount St. Helens on May the 18th, the mountain did indeed put on a spectacular display of volcanic activity in the month of September. Now, if you're wondering how big of an eruption it was, well, let me tell you, it was a doozy. The September eruption sent an estimated 30 million cubic feet of material billowing into the air. That's equivalent to nearly 3.5 times the total volume of the famous Mount Vesuvius. The eruption column reached a height of 12 miles, which is almost twice the altitude of Mount Fuji in Japan. Ash fell over an area of 2,400 square miles, and pumice landed as far away as California. The blast could be heard as far away as San Francisco, more than 2,000 miles away. But despite the ferocity of the eruption, the death toll was surprisingly low. There were only 2 fatalities, one of whom was a stonemason who was working on the new dome of St. Helens Cathedral when he was hit by a falling rock and instantly killed. The other fatality was a tramp who refused to leave the area and was also killed by falling rocks. In addition to these human casualties, thousands of animals perished in the blast radius. Many people believe that the eruption of Mount St. Helens was the largest natural disaster in the history of the United States. However, this is not true. The eruption of Mount Tambora in Indonesia in 1815 is considered the most violent eruption in recorded human history. The explosion was so powerful that it triggered a series of volcanic eruptions around the world and caused the year without summer in 1816. The eruption of Krakatoa in Indonesia in 1883 is considered the deadliest natural disaster in recorded human history, killing over 36,000 people. So, while the eruption of Mount St. Helens in 1860 was certainly impressive, it was not the largest or deadliest volcanic eruption in history. But enough about volcanic eruptions. Let's move on to something a little different. On this day in 1812, John Bellingham was hanged at the Old Bailey in London for the assassination of British Prime Minister Spencer Perceval. Now, you may not have heard of Bellingham or Perceval, but their story is actually pretty fascinating. Perceval was the first British Prime Minister to meet his end at the hands of an assassin. He was shot by John Bellingham, a former merchant who had gone bankrupt and spent time in prison. Bellingham believed that Perceval had been responsible for his downfall and nursed his grudge for several years before finally deciding to take action. He waited until Perceval was exiting the House of Commons and then fired a single shot, hitting him in the chest. Perceval died instantly, and Bellingham was arrested and charged with murder. During his trial, Bellingham admitted to the shooting but pleaded not guilty, claiming that he was insane. The jury ultimately agreed and found him guilty of murder, and he was sentenced to death. Despite the gravity of his crime, there was some sympathy for Bellingham, and many people believed that he had been driven to desperation by his financial troubles. His execution was delayed several times as his supporters lobbied for mercy. Ultimately, however, he was hanged on May 18, 1812, and his body was later handed over to the surgeons for dissection. The assassination of Perceval had a profound impact on British politics. It led to the implementation of new security measures, including the creation of a new police force dedicated to protecting government officials. It also led to speculation about the mental state of politicians and the role of public sympathy in criminal trials. The story of Bellingham and Perceval continues to fascinate people today, and it remains one of the most infamous assassinations in British history. But let's move away from the grim subject of assassinations and talk about something a little more cheerful, like the destruction of an entire city. On this day in 1765, a fire broke out in Montreal, Canada, which would eventually destroy a large part of the city. The fire started in a shed near the Longueuil Gate and quickly spread to nearby buildings. Strong winds fanned the flames, helping them to spread quickly through the wooden structures of the city. Within a few hours, the fire had spread to the main part of the city and was out of control. The residents of Montreal tried their best to put out the fire, but they were unsuccessful. They used buckets of water and chemical extinguishers, but the fire was just too intense. They also tried to create fire breaks by knocking down walls, but this only helped the fire to spread to the neighboring roofs. Eventually, the fire burned itself out, leaving behind a trail of destruction. When the fire was finally extinguished, it was clear that a large part of Montreal had been destroyed. Nearly one-third of the city's buildings were burned to the ground, and thousands of people were left homeless. The damage was estimated to be worth over 1 million livres, which was a huge amount of money at the time. Despite the devastation, the people of Montreal were determined to rebuild their city. They came together and started to clear the debris and rebuild their homes and businesses. The rebuilding process took several years, but eventually Montreal was restored to its former glory. However, the fire had a lasting impact on the city. It highlighted the need for better building codes and fire prevention measures. After the fire, the city implemented stricter regulations to prevent another disaster of this magnitude. For example, they required buildings to be constructed with brick and stone rather than wood. They also created a fire department and established a system of fire breaks throughout the city. These measures were effective in preventing another major fire, and Montreal has not suffered a similar disaster since. Let's finish up with something a little bit more light-hearted. On this day in 1648, the Taj Mahal was officially opened to the public. The Taj Mahal is widely regarded as one of the most beautiful buildings in the world. It's a white marble mausoleum that was built in Agra, India, in the 17th century. The building is a testament to the skill and artistry of the architects, builders, and designers who worked on it for over 20 years to complete it. The Taj Mahal was built by Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan in memory of his third wife, Mumtaz Mahal. When Mumtaz died after giving birth to their 14th child, Shah Jahan was devastated. He decided to build her a tomb that would be the most beautiful and intricate ever seen. He assembled a team of the best architects, builders, calligraphers, painters, and jewelers to design and build the Taj Mahal. The construction of the Taj Mahal began in 1632, and it took over 20 years to complete. It's made of white marble and is set in a garden of Persian design. The main chamber of the Taj Mahal is where Mumtaz is buried. The room is decorated with intricate carvings and inlaid with precious stones. Visitors can still visit the Taj Mahal today. It's open to the public every day except Friday. Thousands of tourists come from all over the world to see this amazing monument. And that's all we have for you today. Thank you for joining us on this journey through time. We hope you learned something new and exciting about our world's history. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. We have plenty more historical tales to share with you, and we'd love for you to join us on our journey through the past. Until next time, stay curious, keep asking questions, and never stop exploring the fascinating world of history.